Boldly going where no man, where no one has gone before. Engage.
Indeed, engage. Welcome everybody. Gotta stop the intro after I play it so it doesn't just keep playing. But yeah, welcome. This is our second time we're doing the Trek Club, and we've got the bells of something. The bells of Vulcan are ringing apparently for our second episode of Trek Hub, and yeah, I kind of just wanted to have kind of just a little conversation about like what you love about Star Trek. I'd usually like to go through the news first, like some news items about Star Trek. This week was not much news. I didn't think I read any news. There was a bunch of like different articles on StarTrek.com that are more just editorials than anything else, but it's been a slow time for Star Trek news. Who knows when we're going to get an announcement for whatever the next movie is going to be. We talked a bit about Strange New Worlds last week, but why don't I bring in my guests? So here I got Devin. Devin's always here. He's not really a guest. And then I got Haven and Chris. How you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good.
Oh.
I'm doing well, brother. Thank you.
Haven, you look like you're going on to a world that isn't an M-class environment. Are you doing all right? How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, brother. Glad to be here. I love seeing you and talking some Trek. You know, I grew up watching the TV shows, you know. I used to watch it with my grandfather and stuff, you know. And then, you know, the movies were pretty cool. The new ones, you know, they're kind of, you know, to be honest, I'm a little split on the new ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, the Picard show was really good. So we got to see what else is
good.
happening.
You watched Picard. Good. Well, engage to that. Chris Diaz joining us from the inhospitable environment of Vulcan, apparently, where everything is sepia tone and the suns are very bright and orange. Everything's logical there, Chris. How you doing?
Doing good. I love Star Trek. I played some of the show, but I've seen all of the movie. I have a lot of back and forth opinion about the movie, but I do like the new one. I do love most of the Trek movie. Picard I'm in the middle of because there's some I like and some I don't like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's good and bad in all of Star Trek, and it's kind of how I feel about Star Wars as well, that the bad in Star Trek is kind of good. Like Star Trek V, everybody like says that's the worst Star Trek movie. There's that line that Kirk says, "Why would God need a starship?" And like they say that's the worst movie, but I love that line because it's just so obvious, like so stupid. It's just such a stupid line, and there's Spock's brother, but I kind of just wanted to go around the table and just ask people like why they love Star Trek, why they like Star Trek. So, Chris, I'll let you lead us off. Lead it off hitter at Vulcan, logical. Vulcans did play baseball in one episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Not very logical. But what do you love about Star Trek?
I love the fiction and the funness of it. Like when I watched the Star Trek movie, it's so much fun watching this. But then I had to rewatch it recently for a tournament. And all of them are fun. Some are a little bit annoying, but it's just the fun as a character. I love every character. They make me laugh. They make me tear up when I can. Spock, Death, and Master Khan, spoiler for a movie that came out many years ago. They'll get to me every time we watch that movie. Really. And when my dad passed away just like a couple weeks ago, I used Kirk's line. All the traveler I met, he was the most human. I used that for my dog. Sonia, for farewell. So, Con. So, something I would love to see come back in more movie form, especially with the new cast. Let's see them again.
Yeah, I love the new cast, and who knows really what we'll see from them, if anything. I mean, beyond a think a lot of people view that as the best of the three J.J. Abrams produced movies. It's definitely more old Trek than new Trek, but still has like that new Trek action adventure to it. But yeah, Spock. I mean, I remember there was an animated series episode where Spock had a dog type creature. I can't think of the name of the creature that he had on Vulcan, but Klingon dogs are Targs, I guess that they're called Klingon Targs. But those may be more of a kitty cat, as Natasha Yar would say on The Next Generation. Haven, what is it that you like about Star Trek? What are your favorite parts? What do you like to get deep into Star Trek? Do you have a favorite series, favorite character, favorite movie, favorite timeline?
Well, I like the original TV series that led into the movies, because back then you didn't really have that too much with television series. And the first thing that was struck out to me, the first thing that I always noticed was the diverse cast. Because back then you didn't really get that a lot. You might have two actors as the main cast, and then a couple, and then every episode you're just bringing some extras in, during whatever it is, crime spree, or because mostly cop shows, unless you're talking about like shows like Dynasty and those romance shows in the AMs, like they always had like a big cast. But Star Trek, to me, to be honest, I think that was the first time I really seen a diverse cast. You had an Asian on the show, you had an African American woman. You really had an Irishman. You really had a lot of different people on this one show. So I thought that was really interesting. So it showed like a united world. It wasn't because most shows back then was all America. It took place in America, American cast. This one was a world cast. And since they were in space, it was like a united world. It wasn't like this guy's you could tell he's an American guy. And this. So that really intrigued me. And when it came to sci-fi fantasy, man, it was pretty one of the first ones that I was like, yo, man, this is really cool. Going to different planets, just going out there. Something that I think we all still wish, we could do right now is like just travel to stars, man. I think that's man's ultimate dream, is to go in the stars, and that show gave it to us, man. So that's why I always had a heart.
You bring up the diverse cast, and that's something that I realized that I didn't really recognize until you just said it. I know I've seen it before, but I don't think about it a lot. Is that the original series, they really did have crew members from all over the world. Like Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, those people were all pretty much Americans. Like some of them were Vulcans or Klingons, but they were all pretty much American accented. And like, other than like
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart is the most British Frenchman alive. But more what I'm talking about is the rest of the cast crew. That crew, you had a Russian guy, you had a Japanese guy, you had I don't know, I think Uhura was I don't even know if she was American or if she was from they say where she's from in one.
I think she might have been American, but she was, but she was African, American, so that was cool.
Yeah. But
let's find out.
They really, Devin's gonna research for us, see where Uhura is actually from. I know in the Kelvin timeline she is indeed American. So she probably is American. And I don't know if Sulu was actually from Japan in the Kelvin timeline. I always got the sense that he was in. What do you got there, Chris?
I can't remember for Voyage Home. He said he lived in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Well,
Starfleet headquarters in San Francisco, so that's probably where most of the captains reside when they're on Earth. But Captain Sulu not spending much time on Earth, I don't think. I mean, he had to captain the Excelsior and the Voyage Home, like that. That's a great movie. Chris, what's your favorite Star Trek movie? I want to hear what your favorite movie is.
Between Wrath of Khan and Voyage Home.
Wrath of Khan and Voyage Home.
Yeah, those are my two favorite. I didn't see Voyage Home until recently, and I fell in love with that movie from start to finish. That's a compliment introduction to Star Trek.
So good. Voyage Home is so much better than it should be. Like, if you see that plot on writing, you're like, that sounds like the most ridiculous movie ever. But then when you watch A Voyage Home and you see that movie, you see the camaraderie of the crew command a Klingon vessel to save whales so that Spock is splashing in the water at the end of the movie with a smile on his face. I love Voyage Home. I like that better than Wrath of Khan personally.
I love both. Bond is very hard to top. for any villain in any Star
It's-
Trek.
Especially when he did not like share any like on set or on screen time with any of the like crew itself. Like they were shot his scenes completely separate from the rest of the scenes in the movie.
Mhm.
I'm not big on Wrath of Khan personally. Like there's a lot of Star Trek movies that I just like better at them. I don't know if it's the time in my life that I saw it in. My favorite part about Wrath of Khan is that it's a sequel to a throwaway episode of the original series. Like where Khan is introduced in the original series, for me, that episode, it's not really a standout episode when I'm watching it back on Netflix, except for the fact that Khan is in it. And that's the thing that I think Wrath of Khan does really well, and that the original series movies do really well, is that you have the history with that crew going into the first movie. That they don't have to convince you that you like these people as much as the Abrams movies do. Haven, what's your favorite Star Trek movie?
Yeah, man, I have to go with Wrath of Khan, holds a place in my heart because it was pretty much one of the first ones that you really had like a main villain that was pretty tough. The other movies, they didn't really have like a main villain like that. Like when you think of like main villains, he could be like a Batman villain or something like that. So Wrath of Khan was really cool. I did like Voyage Home because of the whales. When you first, like you said, when I first seen it, I was kind of like, it was weak. But when I go back and revisit it, I was like, yeah, to plot a whole movie about whales, I thought that was really ingenious. But I actually like the newest one by J.J. Abrams, the last one that came out. That one, I forget the name, Star Trek Beyond. I actually thought that one was pretty fun. I thought that one was pretty cool. I like the action adventure in it. It was a little more fast paced, and it kind of it was like almost standalone. What happened with it, but I thought it was really cool. I like that one, and I was surprised that we just haven't had another one recently. I know because all the stuff going on, but it's been a couple of years now, man. And I thought after the third one, I thought, okay, don't just do a trilogy. Just get a fourth one going. So I hope we do. Yeah, I hope we do get a fourth installment because I did like that cast of characters. I know,
maybe Khan could come back.
Yontan, what was the young kid? Yontan?
Anton Yelchin. Anton Yelchin passed away.
Anton Yelchin passed away. So, when he did, his untimely death, his bizarre death, I know that they said they weren't going to replace his character or recast his character. So I don't know what they're going to do if they do a fourth one, but I would love to see this cast return,
Was they were going to have George Kirk come back, and they were going to have Chris Hemsworth like sit where Anton Yelchin sat because he was an operations officer in his time. So, but then I guess the deal with the actor fell through. Like the Chris's wanted too much money, but I think they'll work something out eventually because Trek is like more popular right now than it's been like since the 90s. It's not as popular as it was in the 90s, but it's making a resurgence, especially with the CBS All Access stuff. Devin looks like he has something to say for once.
All right. So I just did some digging, and all that Memory Alpha could procure was that Uhura is of African descent. That's all it would tell me. But the Swahili language kept coming up with her name meaning star freedom.
Yeah.
Nyota
Uhura. Yeah. Yeah, the Swahili, that's what I was thinking of because she does mention like there are mentions of Swahili when I was studying for like trivia stuff. It was one of those names, Swahili. It's not one of those names you like think of right away.
Hikaru Sulu was born in San Francisco.
San Francisco, nice. I know he's of Japanese heritage though.
He mentioned it when he flying the helicopter in Voyage Home.
In a Voyage Home, because he knew the terrain. Yeah. But yeah, that Voyage Home, I think, Devin, what's your favorite Star Trek movies?
Voyage Home.
Voyage Home, really? Yeah. So people like the space whales. I think my favorite is Star Trek First Contact. The Next Generation, I love the Next Generation crew, and that's it's the first time we see the Enterprise E. There's like we see the Doctor from Voyager in there. We see the Defiant with Worf. James Cromwell's really good as Zefram Cochrane. I like the mission that they have to do, where like they have to go back in time to save humanity from the Borg. I don't like the Borg Queen. That's the one thing I will say about the movie. The Borg Queen, that's just one of those things that never really got me. I never really gravitated towards that character. But I like the challenge that Data has to go through, because the Borg Queen's kind of tempting him with everything he wants.
Humanity.
And and Data like decides, no, I'm gonna help Picard. I'm gonna kill the Borg, or they're gonna stop the Borg until Janeway kills the Borg. It's all really confusing with timelines and stuff, because in the series they always go to these alternate futures that end up not being canon after all.
Hardy or Stewart, these timelines are so confusing.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean,
Tom
honest, it's fine.
What's up, Chris?
I'll let you finish. I was about to say something about the Next Generation.
Well, I like I like First Contact. I'll give honorable mentions to like Nemesis, and surprisingly enough, people the J.J. Abrams Star Trek. I love the J.J. Abrams Star Trek. I love the Enterprise in that movie. There's this shot in the movie where it just kind of pans up and then shows the Enterprise in its full glory, and it's just really cool scene to see. So, but yeah, I think First Contact is my favorite just because of I thought that was the Next Generation crew at their best in that movie, and I just love Star Trek Next Generation. Is my favorite like series all time, pretty much. Chris, what did you have to say?
So, whenever mentioning in the beginning about my Missed Alien Next Generation, First Contact was the only Next Generation movie I like out of all of them.
Really? I like. There's not really a Star Trek movie that I don't like. Except I don't like Star Trek: The Motion Picture, like where they're going to the Voyager 1, the Voyager thing. I'm not. Voyager 6. Yeah, the whole entire thing where they're going to reach like the sentient satellite. It wasn't entertaining for me. They kind of drastically pivoted in the next movie. Oh, nice. Star Trek. Is that a comic book?
No, it's the 6 movies. It's the
the 6 movies.
6
Oh, okay. I thought you had a comic book there.
with the original cast.
Original cast.
So I got all 6. Yeah, all 6 movies. This is
Nice.
the 50th anniversary. If you want this, Nikki, I can send it to you, brother. I don't know if you
I
already
got
have all the.
those. I've
You
got
got
all
all
those
of them?
like already.
Yeah.
I still have them on VHS at my mom's house.
Yeah.
Like I got like a box of them that are the Star Trek VHSs.
Okay, see, that's why I'm on the show. I wanted people to see that I'm down with Star Trek. I want
That's
people
nice.
thinking I'm here fronting.
You're the big comic guy. Have you read
Oh,
any
yes.
of the Star Trek? There's a Star Trek Picard comic. It's like this 3-issue run. It's like a Picard prequel comic. It's really good. It shows how he that how in Star Trek Star Trek J.J. Abrams, Ambassador Spock goes to try to stop the supernova.
Yeah.
Well, that same supernova is the supernova that's in Picard that Picard is evacuating the Romulans from. So while Spock is trying to like stop the supernova that sends him into the J.J. Abrams timeline, Picard is trying to evacuate Romulans. As that's why he leads the Enterprise to become admiral of this relocation and evacuation armada. And like you saw Picard Haven, right?
Yeah.
You saw that goes horribly wrong because there's some like androids and Tal Shiar manipulation and Jad Vash stuff. So it's good stuff in Picard. I really like Picard. Just that series. Picard, I think maybe my favorite character. I go back and forth between like him and Data. You gotta love Bones. I mean, everything Bones says is just kind of some of the funniest stuff. But
I think
that's
like
where I'll
Bone and
You know what I just thought of?
some of the more funniest one-liners.
Oh yeah, I
You know
get
what
so
I
many.
thought about? Oh,
Bones.
go ahead.
Good God, man.
You know, I was gonna say it's weird that the original ones they didn't have like any kind of like robot, humanoid on the ship. Especially because I was big,
Yeah.
for sci-fi back then. But we had to wait until the next generation, and then we got Data, which was kind of like the robot dude. And I just thought about that. I was like, they never had a person like that on the original cast. You would think, back in the day, especially with sci-fi, sci-fi show, they'll have some kind of humanoid robot type of dude, but they just didn't.
For someone who just like seen some of Star Trek show and seen all of the movie, I think Data is a good character. He kind of get on my nerve a few times when I watch the movie.
I could see that.
Like
Um,
his laughter in Generation got on my nerve so many times. Like,
Yeah.
I like Data because he really he's not human. He aspires to be human, and yet he ends up being the most human of all of them. Like you see Data's evolution throughout like Next Generation. If you exclude like season one, because season one Data was seemed to be a lot more in tune with humanity than season 2, 3, 4 Data even. So they had to adjust the character a little bit. But you see Data grow and you see Data adapt and really what I think personally I thought what they did with Data and Picard was just beautiful. I thought his ending in Nemesis was great, that like sacrifices himself to save his family, that sort of stuff. The space jump where he just like jumps out to space, how quick it all happens. But then in Picard, the way like they use him in Picard with his lineage, if you will, and his just his exit as that character. I think we very rarely see a character's completion in Star Trek. Like we have Kirk, we witness Kirk's death, and we know how Ambassador Spock dies because Leonard Nimoy died between films and they added it to Beyond. We don't, other than those two and Data, we don't really see like a character's completion throughout Star Trek. Like we don't get to see them from beginning to end. We just see them go off into the sunset at the end. And that's what I like about Data is that you got to see him live, you got to see him die, you got to see him become human, essentially.
Detroit.
So who's your favorite character, Chris?
kind of it's difficult. In terms of the original cast, Spock. I think Spock and like
Logical choice.
especially in the movie is my favorite character. In that generation, it's Picard.
Live long and prosper.
Or like Picard and Riker and some of the other crew I just love a lot. And then in the new timeline, I love Scotty in the new timeline.
Oh, Scotty's great.
Yeah. Like everything that killed
Yeah,
that role in it. I like his character development in all three of the Abrams films. Like,
Yeah. I like the camaraderie that you get from the original series crew, because that's what I was saying about how you have the whole original series, you got some animated series stuff, if you've ever seen that. But by the time you get to the first Star Trek, the motion picture movie, that crew knows each other, you know them, the camaraderie is there. That's the most difficult part that the Abrams movies had, was that you had to buy that this was the crew of the Enterprise, and you needed to buy that they were like a family, that they had each other's backs, and it worked for me. I know it doesn't work for a lot of people, but for me, I thought it was really good. Haven, who's your favorite character?
Oh, Spock, of course, hands down, man. Spock was cool, because the ears, man. Spock came in with the haircut, the ears, the way he talked, his verbiage. He was really cool, He was different than everybody else on the show. But, if you go back, man, Captain Kirk was just a trip, man. That dude was wild. He's always fun to watch. His cadences when he talks, it was always funny as shit, man. I guess maybe he was trying to be serious back then, but watching it now, he's a trip. From the new show is Picard, from the second series show, has to be Picard, man. He was just a cool captain. And I'm glad that he was able to be more than just a TV actor. He was able to go on and do big things with the X-Men franchise. So, Picard was cool, man. He was bald then, he's bald now. Ain't nothing changed with him, man. He was always a pimp.
Yeah. So yeah, Devin, who's your favorite character? I think I know the answer to that.
I don't even know the answer.
You don't know? I thought it was Scotty. You love Scotty. He loves the engineers.
You got to speak in the mic, Devin.
Sorry, it's a short cable.
It's not a short cable. He's just not leaning into it. Lean into it, Devin. Really lean into it.
I also had to give a shout out to Carl Urban at Bone.
Good God, man.
All right, Deb. So who was your favorite character? Was it, in fact, Montgomery Scott?
So I'm excited to see what's coming next, both with Strange New Worlds and hopefully Lower Decks. But for now, yeah, I'd have to go with Commander Montgomery Scott, serial number SE197540T.
You know, it's the serial number. I don't know how you remember that. I don't know anybody's serial number, but I don't even know what cereal I have in the cabinet right now.
Good God, man.
So yeah, but
Hey,
you
if I could. Oh, go ahead.
no, you haven't.
No, I was gonna say when you were talking about the comics, the Spock comic, I think it was called 5 Year. That was a good comic to read. It was about Spock, and then they actually had a crossover. They had Star Trek and Green Lanterns. That was actually a pretty cool one.
I did see that.
Which I think they did 2 of them, I believe. I think I own all the single issues. I love crossovers, but it was actually pretty cool. It was actually really fun comic to read, man. You know,
Yeah,
if you're a comic reader, you should definitely venture out and check some of those.
Nobody thinks Star Trek when they think comics, but there's a couple good ones. Like there's another Star Trek comic that it's like because they never went to the Mirror Universe on the Next Generation, and it's the Mirror Universe but with the Next Generation crew, and like Locutus of Borg is using like his Borg parts for like evil, and like Deanna Troy's like using her Beta Z powers to like manipulate people, and Data's like augmented himself with like different Borg parts. It's cool stuff. And there's some books too. Like William Shatner wrote a book that would have been like his Star Trek First Contact, where after generations, Spock goes to pay his respects to Kirk on the planet that he died on, and his body isn't there. It's been taken by the Borg and assimilated, and he becomes like a Borg, like bad guy. So that's kind of cool. But so let's talk about like series. Like my favorite series personally is Next Generation. I just think that's one of those shows that I could put any episode on that, no matter how many times I've seen the episode, and just have fun watching it. But Chris, what's your favorite of all the series?
Well, the stuff I've seen, probably Next Generation. I like the camaraderie between the whole cast. I love Patrick Picard. I love a lot of the episodes. And the original show is great. And I kind of like Discovery. I like Picard a lot. But yeah, Next Generation.
Yeah, I think Discovery's really, really underrated. Like people hate on it. I think it's kind of like a little bit of closed-mindedness towards like that's not my Star Trek. But I think there's some really good like the themes in Discovery. Like they're still boldly going. They're still seeking out new life. They're not the Enterprise. Like that's the point, that not every single starship is going to be like the great crew of the Enterprise. And I don't know if you guys have seen any of the short treks that they have on CBS All Access, but they're these little like 10-minute Star Trek shorts, and they're really good. Like they have some that have Captain Pike on it that are kind of like little snippets of what we're going to get of Strange New Worlds. And one of them has Rosa Salazar on it, and she becomes a captain of a ship that's just not the best in Starfleet at all. And it's just
They're just scientists.
disaster incurs because like she doesn't really, there's this one scientist that she fires and then creates a really catastrophe type situation. But you guys might want to check those out if you have the CBS All Access or other means to watch Star Trek short treks. They did just release them on Blu-ray. I saw it today. So they have on Blu-ray if you don't want CBS All Access. But Haven, I think you said before your favorite show is the original series.
I want to talk about the Discovery. I think maybe so a lot of people, didn't really find Discovery too flavorful. Maybe just because they didn't have that many episodes. What was it, 10 episodes? And that was it. If I'm not mistaken, it was 10, right? It was just 10.
Discovery was like 14, I think.
But they never did a season 2 or nothing, right? It was just that was
They
it.
haven't, and they made season 3. They just haven't released it yet.
So Discovery had the season 2?
Oh yeah, Discovery's
show?
going strong. Yeah, season 2 Discovery introduced Captain Pike and Spock, number 1.
Oh, I didn't watch that one now.
No,
So
it's
that's the
good
new,
stuff.
yeah, the CW one, or the not CW, Jesus. It's
CBS
the
All Access.
Access one.
CBS All
Yeah.
Access.
Yeah, I didn't realize they had a season 2 because nobody really talks
yeah.
about that one,
Season 2 is great because they introduced Captain Pike, who's was the captain of the Enterprise before
22
Kirk
years.
was, and he like leaves the Enterprise to take command of Discovery to like search for Spock. Star Trek, search for Spock. Again.
I also have to give a shout out to also really good at Discovery. Jason Isaac is really good on Discovery.
Who is that?
Jason Isaac.
Jason Isaacs. Yeah, Jason Isaacs was a good. I still want to see Prime Universe Lorca. Like they left that open enough that he could still like be either in the mirror universe or be displaced somewhere. That I would like to see that because Discovery, I don't even know who's going to be the captain in season 3. They haven't really released that information. Like Saru is in command of it at the end of, but he was still rank of commander. And then you had Emperor Giorgio on there, who's just still may or may not be disguised as Captain Giorgio in the first few episodes. And then I guess Michael could essentially throw her name in the hat because she was first officer. And I think originally what they said, the way that they pitched Discovery, was that it was a show that wasn't going to be where the captain was the main character, and that Michael Burnham would be like the main character and she would be quote unquote number one. But technically she wasn't even first officer last time we saw her. But yeah, check out Discovery season 2 because Captain Pike, this guy is so incredible that they gave him his own show. Which the Strange New Worlds that they're working on now with Spock and Number One. That's going to be a really cool show about the original crew of the Enterprise,
from the pilot
that Gene Roddenberry originally wanted. So what we're getting essentially is the show that Gene Roddenberry originally envisioned for TV. Obviously done differently because he would have done things differently. But
You also have,
no, you got it, Chris.
I also have to give a shout out. The cast they had for Discovery was really good. Like they have the 8th Sapien, Doug Jones, to be on the show.
Incredible. Yeah.
Like Anthony Rapp, who is a really good Bobby actor, also to be on the show.
Yeah, he's good too.
Yeah.
Doug Jones is the greatest actor that people have never heard of. Like, I'm sure you guys know his filmography. Like,
oh yeah,
Shape of Water,
Hellboy,
yeah.
Silver Surfer, the Fantastic Four, the Silver Surfer.
Creepy person at the end of quarantine.
And now, with you guys, are you excited about like Star Trek moving forward? Like with the Strange New Worlds, like what other series or movies would you like to see? Like personally, I really want to see a movie that is a sequel to the Star Trek Next Generation episode Conspiracy, where a parasitic race starts to latch on to key members of Starfleet. And that was originally going to be like a conceptualization of the Borg, but then they went with a technological race for the Borg, where this was more of a parasitic race, and they never stepped back on that. So I really want like how Wrath of Khan was a sequel to like this episode of original series. I want a movie to just be like a sequel to a single episode of Star Trek, where they pick up a storyline. What would you guys like to see? Haven, I'll start with you. Like, what do you want to see in Strange New Worlds or from a different series or movie?
To be honest, I'm not sure. You know, like I said, I grew up watching the original. You know, when the Next Generation came out, I ain't gonna lie, I was a little older already, so I was kind of like hating on it, you know, at first, because I was like, man, who are all these people, man? I was like, this ain't the Star Trek I knew. I didn't know any of them, you know. Then I started watching some episodes on TV, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool, you know. But I don't think I ever watched it completely, you know, from episode 1 to the last episode they showed. Star Trek, I might have to go back and do some research because I would like them to just have some adventures like they did on the original show, you know, where they go to these worlds and you know, they might have to fight some monsters or some rock people, or you know, just because we don't really get a lot of that, you know. Most of the time it's just they're on the ship, you know. Like in the first original series, they always went to a different planet, you know, Captain Kirk and his crew, and something like that will be really cool if they do that. If they explore that aspect where they just go to different planets, you see the different races, you see the different villains that they could challenge, you know, and go on with, and then there's some dog just came in the yard, and then
Klingon
Sorry,
tar.
some dogs ran up.
no, it's fine.
But other than that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where they could go with the next film. You know, I just want something adventure, something you know, a lot of action, a really great villain, and something that maybe could give the other crew members besides Kurt and Spock some shine. You know, where they could get more involved and stuff. You know,
And get that cast back. We need that cast because that cast, like you replicated, like they did this with X-Men, with like X-Men First Class and Days of Future Past, where you casted those characters so well the first time around. And that's the thing about the Abrams movies. There's not a single one of those characters that I think is miscast. Like I love Sulu, I love Kirk, I love Carl Urban as Bones, Spock, Scotty. I wouldn't recast any of those people. They got it perfectly twice. But I think you're gonna love Strange New Worlds because that's essentially like the name of the series, Strange New Worlds. They're gonna be going to different worlds with Captain Pike. It's gonna be what Star Trek was supposed to be before they reshot the pilot and rechanged the cast. So, and the Enterprise set is beautiful. But like they're reusing the sets that they had from Star Trek Discovery because they made great uniforms, they made great sets of the Enterprise. The models look great. It's a modern take on that original Enterprise. I think that's going to feel the most like old school Star Trek that we've had in a while. Chris, what are you looking forward to?
Honestly, I want to see them continue with the Abrams universe because I like how each of the Star Trek movie in that universe focused on a single character. The first one about Kirk, second one was mostly about Kirk and Spock. And the third one they focus a good amount on Scotty, getting him good development. And they do that with Sulu in the next one, and others like. I was thinking in a hand maybe like Denise. How would you say Denise Galloway, the guy who did Arrival, doing Dune and everything, and they put it in his hand, I think, doing that movie. Like, but and it's hard. Like, I don't know who I should be directing that Star Trek movie. Like,
yeah, I want Abrams back or Justin Lin too.
How about the guy who did Dune, Denis, everything, like Denis.
Villanova.
Denis Villeneuve?
Yeah.
Denis Villeneuve, that might be interesting.
You know what would be cool?
And what he did with Dune and do something with Star Trek that way, I think would be pretty cool.
What you would get from him, I think, is more of like a Star Trek the motion picture where it's a more space odyssey type sci-fi story and less an action adventure, because he kind of steers away from action adventure stuff and more into like thought-provoking sci-fi, which I don't hate in Star Trek. I'm just it concerns me slightly because like Arrival is very, very deep thought science fiction, not much like set your phasers to kill Star Trek. Yeah, but I know you're
like, I'm sorry. Even like they wanted 2029.
Devin, I know you were looking forward to the Lower Decks, the animated series that they're doing. What else do you want to see in Star Trek going forward?
So, like, I loved how Enterprise took us through the beginnings of the Federation and like showed us some of the origins of various things, from the Universal Translator to Replicator. There was this one model that I saw in the background, several shots, and it's essentially a concept that was created, I believe, by NASA. Concept for a ship that would create a warp bubble, essentially. And I kind of want to see that model, like a movie about that.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Kind of like Enterprise. It would be, if I remember correctly, it would be before Enterprise, so it'd be even laying foundations for that.
The Warp 4 engine, Warp 3 engine, different, because the Warp 5 engine was the engine that Archer's father was working on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that he says that, though, because we did get to see like a short glimpse of that and beyond with the USS Franklin and Idris Elba. that's what I really want to see. Is kind of like I want to see a war with the Romulans. Like we know that there's been tensions with the Romulans. I want to see what actually went down with the Romulans because we really haven't seen an all-out war with the Romulans in any of the series. It's always kind of like a Cold War type situation where there's not these epic battles with the Romulans. It's always more like we can't step on the Romulans because they're going to kill us or we're going to kill them. The Romulans always want the Federation to make the first move. So I want to see like some all-out battles with Romulans because one of the best parts about Picard that I think is just awesome is that Picard essentially has a refugee camp of Romulans working on Chateau Picard. It is just the coolest thing because the Romulans were like this really intense antagonist that he had. Yes. Oh, that's interesting. An intense antagonist that they had during Next Generation during the original series. But in Nemesis, he makes an ally in the Romulan Empire with that captain that helps him. Dem was just showing me this ship model of what he was just talking about.
Nice.
Yeah, so what he wants to see is that ship in Star Trek movie. That could definitely be interesting. I don't know what the mission was of that ship even. Like, what was their mission? Was it just
That's
to
what we're gonna
try?
find out.
Oh, well, maybe. That's something that
What
I also
about-
want.
I know the science behind that ship.
They make
what about the next one, right? Let's get a horror director, maybe like James Wan, and make it like a horror film in space with Star Trek. You know, like if they could
Conspiracy's
pull
like
that
a
off, you know.
episode. Like it's like if Cronenberg directed an episode of Star Trek, that's a conspiracy in Next Generation. That's what I really want, like a sequel to that. And that could
Ridley
even,
Scott.
maybe Ridley Scott, yeah,
What
or
about like a bunch
Sam Raimi.
we play action and action and that. And the
Yeah.
sense of fun.
I think, and we haven't even hit on this. Like, we have series, we have movies that are in theaters. Disney Plus does straight to Disney Plus movies. Maybe CBS All Access at some point will make a Star Trek movie that isn't as high budget. That's maybe like a $10 million, $20 million budget, and then where it's kind of like a slower thing, like not as action heavy, not as CGI heavy, but is more of a horror take in Star Trek. Just you're on a Federation ship. One of those conspiracy parasites has infected the crew, and you're just like the lights are down, it's dark, there's lens flares everywhere, and you just need to kind of survive on a starship. That space is scary and it's cold and it's full of disease, as Bones says. I would love to see that.
That would be awesome, you know, especially if they do something like that. Well, you know, I don't know if they could bring in the main actors from, you know, because they get paid a lot of money. But if you could get maybe some of the TV show actors and you do an hour and a half, 2 hour movie, you know, about some kind of horror aspect, because we had a lot of sci-fi TV shows come after Star Trek, like Dark Matter and a couple other ones that were kind of a little darker, had kind of like little horror things like that. Oh, Devin didn't like that. He laughed at me. Okay, I see how it
Oh
is.
no, he made me watch Dark Matter, and I told him when we started watching that show, I'm like, Devin, this show is going to go 3 seasons. They're going to leave it open ended, and then they're going to cancel it. We're never going to see how this show ends. Like I predicted that from the first episode of that show. I'm like, shows like this get canceled every day. They do not care about resolving this story. This is just about filling space on a network. I liked it more than I thought I would, but it was just like from the second that show started, I'm like, we will never see the ending of this.
Yeah, there was the other one with the what the hell was it called? With that he was the only American on the show, and everybody else I think was Canadian or Australian. And they had like a Muppet person, you know, like you know, some kind of not a monster, but yeah, he was like almost like a Muppet where he stayed like in the lower deck, and he was always like like helping the ship or fixing it. And what the hell is that dude? It's on Netflix. What the hell is it called?
I have no idea.
Fuck. Oh shit.
Talk about
Shit, I gotta go find it. But it was a cool show. It was a cool.
Is there any
The
more
first
that you
episode.
remember about it?
We haven't watched it.
It was I'll find it right now. It was
He'll find it.
it was his name started with I think 2 B's, like, you know, Barry Bonds or something. It wasn't Barry Bonds, but it was like BB.
Barry Bonds on a
BB, but
spaceship.
he was the only American. I think everybody else is Canadian. And it lasted a couple seasons. And the first episode starts. He was a NASA astronaut. He goes into space, and the ship, I guess, time travels to the future, and then he like hooks up with this like super big ship, and he has to kind of like be there with these cast of misfits. And I'll try to find the name right now. I like Star Trek, so I watched every sci-fi show that takes place in space on Netflix. And it was one of them. I was like, oh, yeah, it was better than Dark Matter because Dark Matter was kind of confusing.
Sci-fi is so many shows with a ship with a cast of misfits. That's all. Yeah, they like that. And every time I see that, I'm like, these characters are so like one-dimensional. Those shows. It's not even that I don't like them. It's just they frustrate me because I know that I know how the network feels about them. The second like people stop watching it, they just kind of hit the recycle button. Like it's like, okay, cancel that, start a new show that's almost exactly the same, see if that one takes off.
Yeah, especially like for every Firefly, we get shows like Turnover or other stuff.
Yeah, Firefly. I mean, I never saw what everybody else saw in that show. Like, Firefly.
I didn't either. I don't know why people they love that show, and I thought it was average at best. It was not that great.
Yeah,
people love that show.
It's nothing like you don't see on Sci-Fi Network already. But I want to see some low budget Star Trek. Like we see high budget Star Trek with Discovery, with Picard. Like those seasons cost like $150 to $200 million, and the movies are obviously expensive. What I like with the short treks is that it's giving them like opportunities to like experiment with different actors, but that aren't the main cast, that aren't going to appear on any other show. Like the guy that does the voice of Archer was on one of the short treks, and we're never going to see him on another Star Trek thing again. But that's what I want to see in like a Star Trek horror movie, an entirely like new cast that we haven't seen before on a ship that we've never seen before. That's entirely expendable, so that any of them could be picked off at any second in time.
I would say this. I would like to see them explore the Klingon more in the Abram universe because we barely get that much.
You don't get a lot of Klingons in that.
Yeah,
no, you're right.
Besides Into Darkness and deleted scene in 2009.
Oh man, I can't fight. I think it's already off Netflix. God damn it! And I'm on my phone. So I couldn't even look it up. It was.
I want to know what the universe is like since the timeline is different in the Klingon. Like.
Yeah, and the tensions with the Romulans are probably higher in the Kelvin timeline, since a Romulan ship did try to destroy Earth, even though it was from an alternate timeline. They were still Romulans, but luckily they said, we don't speak for the Romulan Empire. Was that?
Because when you think about it, then a Klingon can be more mysterious group that they more focus on Romulan.
Yeah. More Klingons, more Romulans. Show us some Cardassians in like the Kelvin timeline, or even in Discovery or Picard. Show me what that species looks like now.
I think that was one of my biggest frustrations with.
Oh, our host has left. That's weird. I wish, man. Since I'm on my phone, I can't look up that show. But it was on Netflix a couple years ago, and I just can't remember what the hell it was called. But I thought it was intriguing. You know, it had a big ship and it had a cast of like 5 people. He was the only human. I don't remember. That's what I'm saying. I watched so many damn space shows on Netflix that I can't remember the damn name. You know,
that's fine. There's a lot on there, but it's all right. It's not like it's a Star Trek show. Right?
Can you give me a good description of the Muppet character?
It's all right.
Oh, it was big and ugly. It was this big ugly thing, but not as Jabba Hutt looked, but it was big and ugly, and it worked on the computer. It was like the one that controlled the ship. It couldn't leave that part of the. Oh, and it had they had a little monster too. They had this little they had this little fat one that kind of was in a floating chair, and he was a pervert, always trying to have sex, and he looked nasty, and he had these like long whiskers. Yeah, like literally there was only like 5 people on the ship, you know, and there was the one American and the rest were like Canadian. And it was on Netflix.
Must have been a Vancouver-based show.
Yeah, I think so. But I can't remember.
They do a lot of that stuff in Vancouver.
Do you remember any names?
It's Devin.
No, it was years ago. I watched it.
It's not a Star Trek show. That's
Yeah.
that's all that's important. It's
That's
not a
true,
Star
yeah,
Trek show, so it's not required watching for this
The
podcast.
closest
Um,
show that come close to being kind of like Star Trek show to me were Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, because Battlestar Galactica does have like its slow moments. That's my problem with Battlestar Galactica, like the newer one. It was too slow at the beginning, so I never really got hooked into it. But I know that if I watch it long enough, that I'll like it.
It's so good.
But yeah, we're at like 50 minutes now. We had a good like talk here about like what we love about Star Trek, and if you guys don't mind, we can wrap it up now. Where can the people find you, Chris Diaz?
If they find me on Facebook, they find me other stuff. I'm going to Harley review out this week for The Last of Us Part 2, and then my thought on Harley Quinn and Doom Patrol.
Nice. Yeah, I recently watched Doom Patrol, and we're going to do a little bit of a discussion on Justice Tonight this week about what me and Devin thought of that show. And Haven, where can the people find you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook at Jack of All Trivia. It's a trivia league that I'm in. I run, and that's how you get into matches. And of course, on YouTube at Jack of All Trivia. I want to thank Nikki and Devin for having me here tonight. Devin, don't talk so much next time because you hog all the time. but anyway, yeah, man, it was good talking Star Trek with you guys, man. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you, guys. Devin, where can people not find you?
They cannot find me on TeamSpeak.
TeamSpeak, I don't know what TeamSpeak is, but thank you guys. Join us next time on Trek Hub. Join us for all of our shows here on NikiFlix, TMG After Dark on Saturday nights. And yeah, we're live long and prosper.
Peace and long life.
I can't do that. I try.
I lost the Spock soundbite. Damn it.
Yeah, I like the tie. Nice.
Yeah, I like the tie.
There it is. Yep. Listen, my phone's about to die, so it's good hanging out with you brothers.
Boldly going where no man, where no one has gone before.